carriage after it was set up again, who did not get out? Inquired Mademoiselle, but only looked from the window. No, we had not seen her. Then she described a hideous black woman with a sort of colored turban on her head, and who was gazing all the time from the carriage window, nodding and grinning derisively towards the ladies, with gleaming eyes and large white eyeballs, and her teeth set as if in fury. Did you remark what an ill-looking pack of men the servants were? Asked Madame. Yes, said my father, who had just come in. Ugly, hang-dog-looking fellows as ever I beheld in my life. I hope they mayn't rob the poor lady in the forest. They are clever rogues. However, they got everything to rights in a minute. I dare say they are worn out with too long traveling, said Madame. Besides looking wicked, their faces were so strangely lean and dark and sullen. I am very curious, I own, but I dare say the young lady will tell you all about it tomorrow, if she is sufficiently recovered. I don't think she will, said my father, with a mysterious smile and a little nod of his head as if he knew more about it than he cared to tell us. This made us all the more inquisitive as to what had passed between him and the lady in the black velvet, and in the brief and earnest interview that had immediately preceded her departure. We were scarcely alone when I entreated him to tell me. He did not need much pressing. There's no peculiar reason why I should not tell you. She expressed a reluctance to trouble us with the care of her daughter, saying she was in delicate health and nervous, but not subject to any kind of seizure. She volunteered that, nor any illusion, being in fact perfectly sane. How very odd to say all that, I interpolated. It was so unnecessary. At all events it was said, he laughed. And as you wish to know all that passed, which was indeed very little, I tell you, she then said, I am making a long journey of vital importance, she emphasized the word, rapid and secret. I shall return for my child in 3 months. In the meantime, she will be silent as to who we are, whence we come, and whither we are traveling. That is all she said. She spoke very pure French. When she said the word secret, she paused for a few seconds, looking sternly, her eyes fixed on mine. I fancy she makes a great point of that. You saw how quickly she was gone. I hope I have not done a very foolish thing in taking charge of the young lady. For my part, I was delighted. I was longing to see and talk to her, and only waiting till the doctor should give me leave. You, who live in towns, can have no idea how great an event the introduction of a new friend is, and such solitude as surrounds us. The doctor did not arrive till nearly 1 o'clock, but I could no more have gone to my bed and slept than I could have overtaken on foot the carriage in which the princess in black velvet had driven away. When the physician came down to the drawing-room, it was to report very favorably upon his patient. She was now sitting up, her pulse quite regular, apparently perfectly well. She had sustained no injury, and the little shock to her nerves had passed away quite harmlessly. There could be no harm, certainly, in my seeing her if we both wished it, and with his permission I sent, forthwith, to know whether she would allow me to visit her for a few minutes in her room. Well, what do we think? Can we speculate for a second? Because something dubious is going on here, and I want to know what. I do need to take a break from, like, reading the screen, too, every once in a while. Ooh, give me them cozy speculations. Welcome in, Getaway Tiger. I love the Circa Ulus, too. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the carriage shows up, literally dumps these women out of it. The henchmen, I'm calling them henchmen, who were guiding the carriage, apparently had a certain look about them. I think, my speculation, is that the mom is a vampire and is trying to not eat her daughter, and so that's why she was trying to get her daughter, like, out the house or something. I don't know. I have no other, but I have no other speculation. It's all very strange, all very weird, very strange happenings. Okay, but our main character here wants to go see. All very sus. It's very sus. Very sus. Very weird. And also weird that, like, one of them was like, did you see the black lady in the carriage? And then everyone was like, nope. And then they just, like, moved on from that. ill-looking pack of men in the service were ugly hangdog-looking fellows. Hope they don't rob her. Did you see a woman in the carriage? Mademoiselle de la Fontaine is the one who asked that. Did you see the woman in the carriage looking out the window? And everybody was like, no. Let's change the subject. Okay. So, Mel, you made it. Okay. Yes, I sent forthwith to know whether she would allow me to visit her in her for a few minutes in her room. The servant returned immediately to say that she desired nothing more. You may be sure I was not long in availing myself of this permission. Our visitor lay in one of the handsomest rooms in the Schloss. It was perhaps a little stately. There was a somber piece of tapestry opposite the foot of the bed, representing Cleopatra with the asps to her bosom, and other solemn classic scenes were displayed, a little faded, upon other walls, but there was gold carving and rich and varied color enough in the other decorations of the room to more than redeem the gloom of the old tapestry. Packing up for Vegas. Have fun. Oh, and thank you so much for the compliment. Thank you. Yeah, we're just vibing. I'm reading Carmilla for the first time, and I'm loving it. It's called Carmilla. It is a vampire story that was written 25 years before the release of Dracula. So it was published in it's copyrighted 1872, which means it was published around then and written well before. Have fun in Vegas. I love Vegas. Do you mind if I ask what you're going to Vegas for? If you care to share. Is it for a vacation? Is it just to hang out? Are you seeing people? Let me know. Also, if it's private and you don't want to share, that's fine too. When We Were Young Festival. The OG vampire for real. One of. And didn't invite us. My friend tried to go last year when it was a disaster. They canceled it. I actually, there was a poem published in 1885 that my friend was talking about this morning, because these are things I talk about with my friends. But it was a poem, oh God, what was the guy's name? I actually have it written down. Lafcadio Hearn. Lafcadio Hearn used the word vampire in a poem about zombies. The poem was about zombies. But he used the word vampire in it. And I was like, that's so interesting that he used the word vampire in 1885 when Dracula was published in 1897, which seems so late. I always want to say it's 1893, but it's 1897. And also, I'm going to the pre-show to see Ellis Dunes, Taking Back Sunday, and The Used Friday night, and then going straight from there to Magic Mike, then Festival Open Saturday, and we'll be there. Have so much fun. Vampire history lore is so fascinating, especially because it does go back so far, so much farther than people realize. Same thing with zombie folklore. Because the idea of someone dying and coming back, being a zombie, predates, there's written records from the 1100s or something. I don't know. I would have to look it up. And also it's one of those things too where it's okay, well, the word vampire comes from the word Uber, which is really funny. The word Uber, let's see. Let's see. And I always get so fascinated with the words, because the word zombie comes from zombie, Z-O-M-B-I, from the Haitian folklore that zombies were dead people who were brought back to life. Turkish Uber, which is witch, and the Hungarian vampire. Vampire, which comes from the Turkish Uber. And it first appeared in English in 1732 in a news report about vampire epidemics in Eastern Europe. Because that was a real thing that happened. And in 1718, there were practices going on of exhuming bodies and killing vampires. It was believed that if somebody had died and then a close family member had gotten sick shortly after that, that the deceased, it's literally like the first episode of Lore. If you've ever listened to the podcast Lore, it's what literally They Made a Tonic is the first episode. And they talk about how they thought that the deceased relative was sucking the life force of the living relatives from beyond the grave. So you exhume the body, you make a tonic of their, I think their heart and their liver, and drink it, and it's supposed to stop them from harming you anymore from beyond the grave. And then also like a stake in the heart, obviously, too, is very classic. But yeah, vampires have been around for centuries, plural, many. But exploring vampires in literature is really fun because I think it starts to get really fun around the vampires that predate things like Carmilla. There's like 1872. Is scary and not fun. That is, there's an epidemic and we are exhuming bodies and we are like in a panic because there's, supposedly a vampire epidemic going on. But then it starts to get fun once we start getting things like Carmilla and Dracula and fun little pop culture, romps. I call it a romp. It's a fun little romp. But, wow. We really did go on a yap. Thank you. Mel, I hope you have so much fun. Yeah, I'm excited to see pictures. Okay, so she just described the room. There's a solemn tapestry of Cleopatra, but the room is very nicely decorated. It's a very stately room that they are putting this girl up in. And we do not know her name, and we do not know the main character's name yet either, and I really would like to. We love a good yap, yes. I should put my teeth in. I should really have my teeth in while we're reading this. I don't know how well I can read with my teeth in and enunciate and pronounce things, but because it's October, I keep putting in my teeth for free as a treat. Let's see. Yeah. I was waiting for another bite. What do you mean? Oh, another bite? Oh, to put the teeth in? There was one bite in the first chapter. She was really young. This one is tight. I might have to go back to him. He's at New York. If you are at New York and you're going to New York Comic-Con this weekend, they're probably already booked up, but you can say hi to the tooth guy if you're in New York and going to New York Comic-Con this weekend. Okay. She's in the room. Da-da-da-da. There were candles at the bedside. She was sitting up, her slender, pretty figure enveloped in the soft silk dressing gown, embroidered with flowers, lined with thick quilted silk, which her mother had thrown over her feet as she lay upon the ground. It'll actually... Yeah, right? It'll actually reading out loud with the fangs in, I think will help me talk better with them in, because there's a hint of a lisp only because my teeth don't close the same. Legend, you made it. Hello. But wearing them and being able to enunciate with them in is important to me. Hello? Hi, Legends. We're reading vampire book. Novella. Carmilla. Novella. Vampire lady. Yeah. Alright. She, slender pretty figure enveloped in the soft silk dressing gown is a wild. Soft silk, I'd read at one point that Vladimir Dracula, but apparently there is a Russian mentioned in 1047, which may have been an inspiration for good old Vlad. Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Tepes, was originally the inspiration behind Dracula, right? And not just vampires, but Dracula himself. Hi, Pat. We're talking about vampires. But Vlad the Impaler was also called Vlad Dracul, which Dracul in their native language meant the dragon. But there were rumors that he was drinking the blood of his enemies. And so that's where Vlad being a vampire comes from. But yeah, Dracul comes from dragons. And somebody came into my chat once and they were like, Vlad the Impaler, he just wanted to be your pal. Impaler, I hardly know her. He also liked attacking at sunset. Yes, he would not be out in the sun. Somebody came in and was like, hey, do you want to know the connection between vampires and dragons? And I was like, yeah, I have no idea. And then they went to explain Vlad Dracul. And I was like, no. That's the connection between Dracula and dragons, but not vampires. I was a red herring. I was misled. Because I did know that. But yeah. I'm wondering. I haven't gone on a deep dive. To the very first vampires. Although, this is making me want to play 1,000-Year-Old Vampire again. And I have done it on stream. There is a solo RPG. Pat saying hi to everybody. Hi, Pat. How are you doing? It's good to see you. Are you home? Are you back from your stuff and your things? 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is a solo RPG, and it's a journaling RPG where you can do it just journaling, or you can do it as the game, like with the character sheet. Now we gotta make dragon vamps. Vamp dragons? Dragons? Well, I was like Drampires, but Damphir is isn't Damphir a female vampire? Isn't that like the technical term? I don't know. I need to keep reading because I need to see where this goes. I'm so excited. Okay, no, I do need to keep reading. I just read something. And we're gonna keep reading. So she's in the room. She's going up to see the friend, right? There were candles at the bedside. She was sitting up, her slender, pretty figure enveloped in the soft silk dressing gown, embroidered with flowers and lined with thick quilted silk, which her mother had thrown over her feet as she lay upon the ground. It's been an odd 2 months with timing of stuff. Yes, I agree. I literally said the same thing in the beginning of the stream, where I'm just like, the last 2 months have just been like, I just want my schedule back. I just want to stream 4 days a week and have my schedule back. And it's not going to be back until November. Okay, so she's got the quilted silk, which her mother had thrown over her feet as she lay upon the ground. What was it that, as I reached the bedside and had just begun my little greeting, struck me dumb in a moment and made me recoil a step or two from before her? I will tell you. What was it? I saw the very face which had visited me in my childhood at night, which remained so fixed in my memory, on which I had for so many years so often ruminated with horror, when no one suspected of what I was thinking. It was pretty, even beautiful, and when I first beheld it, wore the same melancholy expression. But this almost instantly lighted into a strange fixed smile of recognition. There was a silence of fully a minute, and then at length she spoke. I could not. How wonderful, she exclaimed. 12 years ago I saw your face in a dream, and it has haunted me ever since. Wonderful indeed, I repeated, overcoming with an effort the horror that had for a time suspended my utterances. 12 years ago, in vision or reality, I certainly saw you. I could not forget your face. It has remained before my eyes ever since. I knew it. I knew there was something. So, if you were coming late to the party, in the very first chapter, the main character, the protagonist, the narrator, described a scene from when she was 6 years old. A woman came into her room, beautiful face, bit her on the neck. The maids were all like, there's no one here. It was a dream. It was me. You thought it was me laying next to you. And then, but we'll get the priest in here to like say a prayer really quick anyway. So yeah, it is the very same from her childhood. Okay. Her smile had softened. Her smile had softened. Whatever I had fancied strange in it was gone, and it and her dimpling cheeks were now delightfully pretty and intelligent. I felt reassured and continued more in the vein which hospitality indicated, to bid her welcome and to tell her how much pleasure her accidental arrival had given us all, and especially what a happiness it was to me. I took her hand as I spoke. I was a little shy, as lonely people are, but the situation made me eloquent and even bold. I pressed my hand, she laid hers upon it, and her eyes glowed as, looking hastily into mine, she smiled again and blushed. She answered my welcome very prettily. I sat down beside her, still wondering, and she said, I must tell you my vision about you. It is so very strange that you and I should have had each of the others so vivid a dream, that each should have seen, I, you, and you, me, looking as we do now, when of course we both were mere children. I was a child about 6 years old, and I woke from a confused and troubled dream, and found myself in a room unlike my nursery, wainscoted clumsily in some dark wood, with cupboards and bedsteads and chairs and benches placed about it. The beds were, I thought, all empty, and the room itself without anyone but myself in it, and I, after looking about me for some time, and admiring especially an iron candlestick with 2 branches, which I should certainly know again, crept under one of the beds to reach the window. But as I got from under the bed, I heard someone crying, and looking up, while I was still upon my knees, I saw you, most assuredly you, as I see you now, a beautiful young lady with golden hair and large blue eyes and lips, your lips, you as you are here. Your looks won me. I climbed on the bed and put my arms about you, and I think we both fell asleep. I was aroused by a scream. You were sitting up and screaming. I was frightened and slipped down upon the ground, and it seemed to me lost consciousness for a moment, and when I came to myself, I was again in my nursery at home. Your face I have never forgotten since. I could not be misled by the mere resemblance. You are the lady whom I saw then. It was now my turn to relate my corresponding vision, which I did, to the undisguised wonder of my new acquaintance. So, her correspondence is the exact situation opposite. She is 6 years old in her bed. She wakes up, sees her face. They had the exact same vision. I don't know which should be most afraid of the other, she said, again smiling. If you were less pretty, I think I should be very much afraid of you, but being as you are, and you and I both so young, I feel only that I have made your acquaintance 12 years ago, and have already a right to your intimacy. At all events, it does seem as if we were destined, from our earliest childhood, to be friends. I wonder whether you feel as strangely drawn towards me as I do to you. I have never had a friend. Shall I find one now? She sighed, and her fine dark eyes gazed passionately on me. Now, the truth is, I felt rather unaccountably towards the beautiful stranger. I did feel, as she said, drawn towards her, but there was also something of repulsion. In this ambiguous feeling, however, the sense of attraction immensely prevailed. She interested and won me. She was so beautiful and so indescribably engaging. I perceived now something of languor and exhaustion stealing over her, and hastened to bid her good night. The doctor thinks, I added, that you ought to have a maid sit up with you tonight. One of ours is waiting, and you will find her a very useful and quiet creature. How kind of you. I could not sleep. I never could with an attendant in the room. I shan't require any assistance, and shall I confess my weakness? I am haunted with a terror of robbers. Our house was robbed once, and 2 servants murdered, so I always lock my door. It has become a habit. And you look so kind, and I know you will forgive me. I see there is a key in the lock. She held me close in her pretty arms for a moment and whispered in my ear, Good night, darling. It is very hard to part with you, but good night. Tomorrow, but not early, I shall see you again. She sank back on the pillow with a sigh. Her fine eyes followed me with a fond and melancholy gaze, and she murmured again, Good night, dear friend. Young people like and even love on impulse. I was flattered by the evident, though as yet undeserved, fondness she showed me. I liked the confidence with which she at once received me. She was determined that we should be very near friends. Next day came, and we met again. I was delighted with my companion, that is to say, in many respects is what it says, but I said it wrong. Her looks lost nothing in daylight. She was certainly the most beautiful creature I'd ever seen, and the unpleasant remembrance of the face presented in my early dream had lost the effect of the first unexpected recognition. She confessed that she had experienced a similar shock on seeing me, and precisely the same faint antipathy that had mingled with my admiration of her. We now laugh together over our, our momentary horrors. So what happens sometimes when I read out loud is I pre-read ahead. I'm reading faster than my mouth is moving because I want to like see what the next words are so that I'm saying them, but then sometimes wires get crossed and I just say all the words at the same time. So, sometimes I just need to slow down. I get so excited. I get so excited. But that was chapter 3. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And what a wild thing to happen. She saw this woman in her bed when she was a child, and now here she is again in front of her, and gorgeous and beautiful, and they're both beautiful, and they're both talking to each other about how beautiful they are, and they were both girls. Hello. Imagine being gay in 1872, okay? Okay, imagine. And that's why, like, when I read these things, and it was something that I explained to somebody about The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Legasp. I know. The Time Machine was also written in the late early 1900s, I think. 1895. So 2 years before Dracula came out, The Time Machine by H.G. Wells came out. And I think why H.G. Wells is such a prolific science fiction writer, science fiction and fantasy writer. You one of them queer? Yeah. Yeah. You're gay? You're gay. If you put yourself in the context of the time, if you read The Time Machine now, it's like, oh, this is cool. It's about a guy making a time machine and going back and forward in time. It's fun. It's cool. It's a little romp. But if you think about it, people didn't own cars yet. Like, cars were just starting to become a household thing. So for him to be writing about this machine that travels through time and space at a time when they barely had electricity. No, they had electricity, but you know what I mean. Like, the streets weren't paved. People were still on carriages. Like, you know what I mean? People would take a hansom to the corner store and it's a horse-drawn taxi carriage, you know? If you put the book in the context of the time. And actually, there is a time-traveling novel that predates H.G. Wells. It's called By His Bootstraps, and I don't know. Oh, yes. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is actually one of my favorites. And also the way he describes the Nautilus and what people are seeing. I almost want to read you the first chapter of that book because it's so good. It's so good. But yeah, they had all of these, and of course they're fiction writers, and they had all of these ideas. I had to look up when the first blood transfusion was, because in 1897, when Dracula was published, Van Helsing performs a blood transfusion on one of the girls, where they are describing how he is taking a needle and putting it in his own arm to transfer his blood to the girl. They're literally doing a blood transfusion, and it is the 1890s. And I just think it's so fascinating but I think I had looked up, and the first successful blood transfusion was well before that. So it was a thing. And it's just so fascinating, you know, like how they came up with these ideas. Tiffany effect at its best. I don't know what that is. I'm trying to remember correctly because I feel like Mary Shelley was on a train with some other authors when she wrote Frankenstein. Because Frankenstein, the book, was originally published in 1818. Some of the stuff in Journey to the Center of the Earth was fascinating too. It got a little trippy towards the end. Yes, Frankenstein is another good one where I don't think people realize how old it is. Antiquity factor problems when things seem like anachronistic or unrealistic, but they're accurate to the time. Yes, I learned something today. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I also love the word anachronistic. I do Civil War reenactments, so not like that. So we are worried about anachronisms constantly in our languages and in our actions. We don't high five. I play baseball. I play baseball. Some of you know I play vintage baseball. 1858 baseball. So this would not have been published by the time I was playing baseball. Okay. Chapter 4 is called Her Habits, a Saunter. I knew this was going to be a romp. I told you that I was charmed with her in most particulars. There were some that did not please me so well. She was above the middle height of woman. I shall begin by describing her. She's tall. Bitch is tall. And slender. She was slender and wonderfully graceful, except that her movements were languid, very languid indeed. There was nothing in her appearance to indicate an invalid. Her complexion was rich and brilliant. Her features were small and beautifully formed. Her eyes large, dark, and lustrous. Her hair was quite wonderful. I never saw hair so magnificently thick and long when it was down about her shoulders. I have often placed my hands under it and laughed with wonder at its weight. It was exquisitely fine and soft, and in color of rich, very dark brown, with something of gold. I loved to let it down, tumbling with its own weight, as, in her room, she lay back in her chair, taking in her sweet low voice. I used to fold and braid it, and spread it out and play with it. Heavens, if I had but known all. There's something so intimate about playing with someone's hair. Not like that, but I honestly don't think I've read anything that old. It's fun. I think you may have, but you'd be surprised. I'm not sure. But like I said, like Frankenstein, 1818. Bondi. And you know what I was surprised about too is Edgar Allan Poe. I always lumped in Poe with a lot of the late turn of the century Gothic. I did enjoy reading The Art of War. I have not. I'm not sure if it's on my list. I go straight for fantasy. The Raven's very good. Fall of the House of Usher obviously was made really popular again by the Netflix series, the Mike Flanagan Netflix series. But I did just I picked it up back in May. I haven't gotten around to reading it. Sorry, I just had the realization that I've been reading The Wager and I have not talked about it at all. I have not told anyone here that I'm currently in the midst of The Wager, which it makes so much sense why it is such a popular book currently. It was released very recently, and it is the tale of the ship The Wager, which on a mission to intercept a Spanish merchant vessel got shipwrecked off the southern coast of Chile. And they were shipwrecked and stranded for 4 or 5 months before they were like, we gotta get out of here. We gotta do something. But it is so well written that, it says mutiny on the cover, so no spoilers. There's a mutiny. Okay. I'm having deja vu. Maybe I did talk about this. But it has me questioning, because I'm like, what would I do? What would I do if I was one of those men in that situation? Would I mutiny? Would I go with the group that is leaving the captain, knowing what I know? Or would I stay with the captain, who is still trying to complete the mission? The captain's still trying to complete his mission and his duty. And they're in the Navy. It is a naval ship, and they have a mission, and if they don't complete it, they will be seen as traitors anyway, and deserters, and there's just no like there's no good outcome. But if you read the synopsis of the book, again, not really a spoiler, but if you're worried about spoilers, I'll spoiler hand it, and I will put my hand down when I'm done talking about what could potentially be spoilers for this book. In the synopsis on the cover, before you even start reading it, if you read that, it says that a ship of 30 men washes up on a shore, and they are claiming, their story and everything that happened. But then a month later, 3 men wash up in a different boat and say, no, that's not how it happened. Here's the real story. And so I haven't gotten to this part yet, but I think the whole end of the book is the survivors, because people do survive. One of them being Byron, who is Lord Byron's grandfather, the poet. It's the poet. It's not the poet. The poet isn't on the ship. It's Lord Byron, the poet. His grandfather was on this ship when it wrecked. And so there are survivors, but apparently there's a whole, I don't want to say lawsuit type situation. There's a lot of court stuff that I haven't gotten to yet, but it's very good. It's very good. I also do like Edwardian and Gregorian maritime tragedies. It's been my special interest recently. So next on my list after The Wager is In the Heart of the Sea, which is about the Essex, which is the whaling ship that Moby Dick is based on. The story of Moby Dick is based on the Essex. And that also story is they were shipwrecked, and oh no, there are cannibals on this, the natives on this island are cannibals, we cannot stay here, and then they leave, and then they fucking eat each other anyway, because there's no food in the ocean for them that they can feasibly catch, and it's bad luck to kill a seabird. We all know this, but they do it anyway. They eat them. They eat the albatross and the cormorants and the... Anywho, we're talking about her hair and it tumbling down her shoulders and folding it and braiding it and spreading it out and playing with it. This is far better than my university literature class. I'm so glad, because I'm a yapper. I like yapping about things that are my special interests, but I feel like English and literature were my least favorite subjects in school. And I used to think I was bad at reading because I'm a slow reader. But turns out there's no such thing as being bad at reading. Obviously, there's reading disabilities. There's things like dyslexia, and ADHD makes it very hard to read. But if it takes you a month, if it takes you a week, if it takes you 3 years, if you finish a book, you finish a book. You're reading. If you read 1 page a month, you're reading. And I think there's so much societal influence on everything of being well, if you read 1 book a year, you're not a reader. It's but you're reading. You're reading books. It doesn't matter. Audiobooks too. Audiobooks absolutely count. Instead of receiving the words with your eyes, you're receiving the same exact words with your ears. There's no difference to me. There's no difference to me. And if anything, it's faster. And sometimes I do better when I hear it than when I read it. Especially in some of this writing too, specifically, I read passages and then it's if you ask me what that means, I couldn't tell you, but I read all the words right in the right order with the right inflection, but I cannot tell you what it means. All right, we're going to start up again in a second. Heavens, if I had but known all. I said there were particulars which did not please me. I have told you that her confidence won me the first night I saw her, but I found that she exercised with respect to herself, her mother, her history, everything in fact connected with her life, plans, and people, an ever wakeful reserve. Dare I say I was unreasonable, perhaps I was wrong. I dare say I ought to have respected the solemn injunction laid upon my father by the stately lady in black velvet, but curiosity is a restless and unscrupulous passion, and no one girl can endure with patience that hers should be baffled by another. What harm could it do anyone to tell me what I so ardently desired to know? Had she no trust in my good sense of honor? Good sense or honor. I was like, sense of humor. No, sense or honor. Like most hobbies, no need to gatekeep. However, they are participating. Yes. However, they are participating. They're participating. Sam said I read the Odyssey but couldn't get through the I don't know how to pronounce the Aeneid. Read the Iliad, but it just kind of met about it. Yeah, I've heard that the Odyssey is better than the Iliad, and the third one that is the prequel. I think isn't the Aeneid? Isn't that the prequel? Yeah. The Aeneid. It's Aeneid. Aeneid. Story of Aeneas, the Trojan who fled the fall of Troy and traveled to Italy. Okay, no. Is it happen at the same time? Because it's after the fall of Troy. No, you're totally fine. I did find it. So, speaking of gatekeeping, Little Miss is gatekeeping her, her history, her life plans, people, her mother, everything. Why would she not believe me when I assured her so solemnly that I would not divulge one syllable of what she told me to any mortal breathing? There was a coldness, it seemed to me, beyond her years, and her smiling melancholy, persistent refusal to afford me the least ray of light. I cannot say we quarreled upon this point, for she would not quarrel upon any. It was, of course, very unfair of me to press her, very ill-bred, but I really could not help it, and I might just as well have let it alone. What she did tell me amounted, in my unconscionable estimation, to nothing. It was all summed up in 3 vague disclosures. First, her name was Carmilla. Very ill-bred. I'd like to be ill-bred. Her name is Carmilla. Second, her family was very ancient and noble. And third, her home lay in the direction of the west. Christian said, I've been working with the 4th Hunger Games book for over a year because it wasn't hooking me like the original trilogy, but I started reading it because the movie adaptation came out, yes, and had to read each book, then watch the movie counterpart when I read them. Hunger Games, the first Hunger Games was one of the first books that I read in one night. I did not put it down. Very few books I have done that with. The Wager is really hard for me to put down, so I've been doing it in chunks because once I put it down, I'm like, okay, I know when I pick this up again, I'm not going to be able to put it down again, so I need to make sure I have a good chunk of time to actually set apart and read it. There have been a couple other ones. I wish I could remember off the top of my head. Oh, Fantastic Land. Fantastic Land. Highly recommend if you like Lord of the Flies type situations. Yeah, just binging a book. I usually don't do it. Yeah, 4th Hunger Game isn't as engaging as a trilogy. Yeah, there's another one coming out, isn't there? The Hunger Games movies, by the way, I rewatched them recently and they hold up. That was kind of a good time. Okay. Her name's Carmilla. Oh, and if you do want another really good vampire book, it's called Book of Blood. I think it's called The Book of Blood. I want to get my copy back from my friend, but that was one that I read last year that I absolutely loved. But it is a newer one, and it was written, again, it's written like letters, and it reads like poetry. I just absolutely love it. Okay. She would not tell me the name of her family, nor their armorial bearings, nor the name of their estate, nor even that of the country they lived in. Okay. I think I might need to... Lynn needs to make a suggested books list. I can just go through my, Goodreads of books that I have read and recorded on Goodreads. Not me doing this right now. My books. Read. There's a lot of books that I could not recommend to you. There are books that I can tell you to avoid at all cost. Would you like to hear those? They All Died Screaming is one of them. Don't read that book. Do not read that book. Sadly, I don't have most of what I read on Goodreads. I've forgotten so many. Yeah. No. This Thing Between Us was very good. Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. So Sayaka Murata is not controversial. If you're autistic, I highly recommend reading The Convenience Store Woman, because the character in that book and the way Sayaka Murata writes resonates with me in an incredible way. Loved it. But Convenience Store Woman, it gets really weird. But all of the Sayaka Murata books that I have read get really weird. Oh, we have an ad break starting in a minute too, so I will stop reading the I'll stop reading the book for a second while the ads are running. Let's see. Tender is the Flesh was the first book that I ever read that kind of made me sick, and I had to put it down. That one was a tough read. A Dowry of Blood, that's what it's called. A Dowry of Blood. Book of Blood is the movie series. There's like 3 of them, I think. Books of Blood. A Dowry of Blood is the book I was talking about. If you've never read The Picture of Dorian Gray, he's the original fuckboy. It's such a good book. Please read it. There's a lot of smut in here too, so it's like I'm not gonna go through all of these. Yeah. I don't actually read that much. This isn't a very long list of books, by the way. There's 55 books in my read book list, and a lot of them are manga. Since that I struggled with Orson Scott Card's books. Not hard to read, just hard to stay in. Yeah, there's a book out now called Piranesi that was getting like rave reviews on Book Talk and in the like internet book spheres, and my best friend read it and also loved it, but I'm having a really hard time reading it because the capitalization of certain words, like every other word, every other like noun is capitalized, and it breaks up my like flow, if that makes sense. Like I'm not able to just like read it because I get hung up on these words that are capitalized that shouldn't be. I'm currently reading like 12 different books. This is literally my currently reading list. But yeah, I started reading Fire and Blood. It's actually really good. I want to keep reading that. It says we were 45% of the way through The Man. Also. Yeah, I could probably finish a couple of these books. I could probably finish a couple of these. God, The Wager is so good. Okay. There's an ad break. Oh, I need more water. I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab more water and let the ads run. We have a friend. Oopsie. We have a friend. Okay. Hi. I don't know if you can hear him purring. Will you purr into the microphone? Wow. He's my baby. I don't know if he'll like me reading, but we'll see. Okay. Where did we leave off? Her name's Carmilla. She didn't tell me the name of their estate nor the country that they lived in. You are not to suppose that I worried her incessantly on these subjects. Is the ad over? The ad's over. Okay, good. He looks like my oldest boy Napoleon that we lost a year ago, and my heart wants to explode. Oh. Oh, you hear that? You kindred cat spirit. I will give him extra pets for Napoleon. Extra pets. Yeah. You're crusty. You got goobies in your eyes. He's a white cat, so he gets real crusty and gross. But he lets me clean him. He lets me clean his ears and stuff, which is really nice. You are not to suppose that I worried her incessantly on these subjects. I watched opportunity and rather insinuated than urged my inquiries. Once or twice, indeed, I did attack her more directly, but no matter what my tactics, utter failure was invariably the result. Reproaches and caresses were all lost upon her. But I must add this, that her evasion was conducted with so pretty a melancholy and deprecation, with so many and even passionate declarations of her liking for me, and trust in my honor, and with so many promises that I should at last know all, that I could not find it in my heart long to be offended with her. She used to place her pretty arms around my neck, draw me to her, laying her cheek to mine, murmur with her lips near my ear, "Dearest, your little heart is wounded. Think me not cruel because I obey the irresistible law of my strength and weakness. If your dear heart is wounded, my wild heart bleeds with yours. In the rapture of my enormous humiliation, I live in your warm life, and you shall die, sweetly die into mine. I cannot help it. As I draw near to you, you in your turn will draw near to others, and learn the rapture of that cruelty, which yet is love. So, for a while, seek to know no more of me and mine, but trust me with all your loving spirit." What a weird thing to whisper to someone. If someone whispered that to me, I'd be like, "Are you okay?" And when she had spoken such a rhapsody, she would press me more closely in her trembling embrace, and her lips in soft kisses gently glow upon my cheek. Her agitations and her language were unintelligible to me. How romantic. Yeah, she literally says her agitations and her language were unintelligible to me. She literally just said, "Bitch, what are you saying? What do you mean by that?" She said, "What do you mean by that? Your language is unintelligible to me." From these foolish embraces, which were not of very frequent occurrence, I must allow, I used to wish to extricate myself, but my energies seemed to fail me. Her murmured words sounded like a lullaby in my ear and soothed my resistance into a trance, from which I only seemed to recover myself when she withdrew her arms. In these mysterious moods I did not like her. I experienced a strange tumultuous excitement that was pleasurable, ever and anon, mingled with a vague sense of fear and disgust. I had no distinct thoughts about her while such scenes lasted, but I was conscious of a love growing into adoration and also of abhorrence. This, I know, is paradox, but I can make no other attempt to explain the feeling. I now write, after an interval of more than 10 years, with a trembling hand, with a confused and horrible recollection of certain occurrences and situations, in the ordeal through which I was unconsciously passing, though with a vivid and very sharp remembrance of the main current of my story. But I suspect, in all lives there are certain emotional scenes, those in which our passions have been most vividly and terribly roused, that are of all others the most vaguely and dimly remembered. I don't think that's what the Yin Yang Twins meant by "Hey little mama, let me whisper in your ear." Oh, that's so funny. Gosh. Sometimes, after an hour of apathy, my strange and beautiful companion would take my hand and hold it with a fond pressure, renewed again and again, blushing softly, gazing in my face with languid and burning eyes, and breathing so fast that her dress rose and fell with the tumultuous respiration. It was like the ardor of a lover. It embarrassed me. It was hateful and yet overpowering, and with gloating eyes she drew me to her, and her hot lips traveled along my cheek in kisses, and she would whisper, almost in sobs, "You are mine, you shall be mine, you and I are one forever." Then she had thrown herself back in her chair with her small hands over her eyes, leaving me trembling. "Are we related?" I used to ask. "What can you mean by all this? I remind you perhaps of someone whom you love, but you must not. I hate it. I don't know you. I don't know myself when you look so and talk so." She used to sigh at my vehemence, then turn away and drop my hand. I feel like I have so much to say, but nothing to say at all. Respecting these very extraordinary manifestations, I strove in vain to form any satisfactory theory. I could not refer them to affection or trick. It was unmistakably the momentary breaking out of suppressed instinct and emotion. Okay, see, this is why I keep reading, because she's saying what I'm thinking, where I'm like, she can't control it. She can't control it. But she wants that she wants that ass or something. I don't know. It was unmistakably the moment of breaking of suppressed instinct and emotion. I already read that. That's fine. Was she, notwithstanding her mother's volunteered denial, subject to brief visitations of insanity? Or was there here a disguise and a romance? I had read in old storybooks of such things. What if a boyish lover had found his way into the house and sought to prosecute his suit in masquerade with the assistance of a clever old adventuress? But there were many things against this hypothesis, highly interesting as it was to my vanity. She's like, did a boy sneak in to crush on me? No, wrong. Oh, God. He did not like that. There he goes. I could boast of no little attention such as masculine gallantry delights to offer. Between these passionate moments there were long intervals of commonplace, of gaiety, of brooding melancholy, during which, except that I detected her eyes so full of melancholy fire following me, at times I might have been as nothing to her. Except in these brief periods of mysterious excitement, her ways were girlish, and there was always a languor about her, quite incompatible with a masculine system in a state of health. Literally, she's not a boy. You figured it out. In some respects, her habits were odd, perhaps not so singular in the opinion of a town lady like you, as they appeared to us rustic people. She used to come, I literally so many times in this book, like this is the third or fourth time she's kind of been like, but you wouldn't know because you're not isolated like I am. Oh, you people who live in towns and cities, you would never understand what it's like to be so isolated. Like seriously, like 3 separate times. And I think it's so funny. I think it's so funny. She used to come down very late, generally not till 1 o'clock. She would then take a cup of chocolate, but eat nothing. We then went out for a walk, which was a mere saunter, and she seemed almost immediately exhausted, and either returned to the Schloss or sat on one of the benches that were placed here and there among the trees. This was a bodily languor. in which her mind did not sympathize. She was always an animated talker and very intelligent. Oh, so they hipsters. No, she's a pick-me. She's a pick-me. You don't know what it's like to live such an isolated life. You would never know. She sometimes alluded for a moment to her own home, or mentioned an adventure or situation or an early recollection, which indicated a people... Also, hi, Tiny. I don't know if I said hi. Hello. Which indicated a people of strange manners and described customs of which we knew nothing. I gathered from these chance hints that her native country was much more remote than I had first fancied. I'm also practicing talking in my fangs. So... As we sat thus one afternoon under the trees, a funeral passed us by. It was that of a pretty young girl whom I had often seen, the daughter of one of the rangers of the forest. The poor man was walking behind the coffin of his darling. She was his only child, and he looked quite heartbroken. Peasants walking two and two came behind. They were singing a funeral hymn. I rose to mark my respect as they passed, and joined in the hymn they were very sweetly singing. Hi. Thank you. Excellent. I'm so glad. Hi, Garvey. Hello, hello. Yeah, it's my very own special kind of reading out loud where, like, I also have to yap. I have to yap about what's going on in the book because so many things. Okay, so the funeral. My companion shook me a little roughly, and I turned surprised. Okay, she's singing the hymn. My companion shook me a little roughly, and I turned surprised. She said brusquely, "Don't you perceive how discordant that is?" "I think it very sweet. On the contrary," I answered, vexed at the interruption, and very uncomfortable, lest the people who composed the little procession should observe and resent what was passing. I resumed, therefore, instantly, and was again interrupted. "You pierce my ears," said Carmilla, almost angrily, and stopped her ears with her tiny fingers. "Besides, how can you tell that your religion and mine are the same? Your forms wound me, and I hate funerals. What a fuss! Why, you must die. Oh, you must die. Everyone must die, and all are happier when they do. Come home." She said, "Clean it up." "My father has gone on with the clergyman to the churchyard. I thought you knew she was to be buried today." "She? I don't trouble my head about peasants. I don't know who she is," answered Carmilla, with a flash from her fine eyes. "She's the poor girl who fancied she saw a ghost a fortnight ago, and has been dying ever since, till yesterday, when she expired. Tell me nothing about ghosts. I shan't sleep tonight if you do." "I hope there's no plague or fever coming. All this looks very like it," I continued. "The swineherd's young wife died only a week ago, and she thought something seized her by the throat as she lay in her bed and nearly strangled her. Papa says such horrible fancies do accompany some forms of fever. She was quite well the day before. She sank afterwards and died before a week." "Well, her funeral's over, I hope, and her hymn sung. And our ears shan't be tortured with that discord and jargon." Jargon is an awesome word to have in here. "It has made me nervous. Sit down here beside me. Sit close. Hold my hand. Press it harder." We had moved a little back and had come to another seat. It says hard 3 times. It says harder, but I didn't want to do that because I know y'all. I know me. I'm not doing that. She sat down. Her face underwent a change that alarmed and even terrified me for a moment. It darkened and became horribly livid. Her teeth and hands were clenched, and she frowned and compressed her lips, while she stared down upon the ground at her feet and trembled all over with a continued shudder as irrepressible as ague. No. Hello? We're looking up another word and how to pronounce it, because English is hard. Ague. Malaria. Or some other illness.
Ague.
Ague. A continued shudder as irrepressible as ague, so like a fever or a flu. All her energies seemed strained to suppress a fit, with which she was then breathlessly tugging, and at length a low, compulsive cry of suffering broke from her, and gradually the hysteria subsided. There, that comes of strangling people with hymns, she said at last. Hold me still, it is passing away. Literally. And so gradually it did. And perhaps, to dissipate the somber impression which the spectacle had left upon me, she became unusually animated and chatty, and so we got home. This was the first time I had seen her exhibit any definable symptoms of that delicacy of health which her mother had spoken of. It was the first time, also, I had seen her exhibit anything like temper. Both passed away like a summer cloud, and never but once afterwards did I witness on her part a momentary sign of anger. I will tell you how it happened. She and I were looking out of one of the long drawing-room windows, when there entered the courtyard, over the drawbridge, a figure of a wanderer whom I knew very well. He used to visit the Schloss generally twice a year. It was the figure of a hunchback, with the sharp, lean features that generally accompany deformity. He wore a pointed black beard, and he was smiling from ear to ear, showing his white fangs. He was dressed in buff, black, and scarlet, and crossed with more straps and belts than I could count, from which hung all manners of things. Behind he carried a magic lantern, with 2 boxes, which I well knew, in one of which was a salamander, and in the other a mandrake. These monsters used to make my father laugh. They were compounded of parts of monkeys, parrots, squirrels, fish, and hedgehogs, dried and stitched together with great neatness and startling effect. He had a fiddle, a box of conjuring apparatus, a pair of foils and masks attached to his belt, several other mysterious cases dangling about him, and a black staff with copper ferrules in his hand. His companion was a rough spare dog that followed his heels but stopped short suspiciously at the drawbridge, and in a little while began to howl dismally. What a fun man this is. He has... I'll be real, I fell asleep. No, good. Good. As long as you can be sleeping. As long as you're in a place to be sleeping. Do not listen while... I should have disclaimer. Do not listen while you're driving. Do not listen while you're at work or operating machinery. Or if you can stay up at work. A mango. Hi, mango. This man just shows up with, like, taxidermy Frankensteins of squirrels, parrots, and fishes and hedgehogs stitched together. And these monsters used to make my father laugh. Oh, God. The dog will not cross the bridge. I'm gonna be for real. The dog knows. In the meantime, the mountebank standing in the midst of the courtyard raised his grotesque hat and made us a very ceremonious bow, paying his compliments very volubly in execrable French, and German not much better. Then, disengaging his fiddle, he began to scrape a lively air to which he sang with a merry discord, dancing with ludicrous airs and activity that made me laugh in spite of the dog's howling. Then he advanced to the window with many smiles and salutations, and his hat in his left hand, his fiddle under his arm, and with a fluency that never took breath, he grabbed a long advertisement of all his accomplishments, and the resources of the various arts which he placed at our service, and the curiosities and entertainments which it was in his power, at our bidding, to display. Will your ladyships be pleased to buy an amulet against the Alpire, which is going like the wolf, I hear, through these woods? He said, dropping his hat on the pavement. They are dying of it right and left, and here is a charm that never fails, only pinned to the pillow, and you may laugh in its face. These charms... Also, Opire is wild. O-U-P-I-R-E. Here we go. Opire, a demonic being from Slavic and Turkic folklore that is considered a prototype of the vampire. I think it's pronounced Opier. Opior. Interesting. Final Fantasy 11 Encyclopedia. Couldn't find anything on the pronunciation. Hi, thanks, Peanut. I appreciate it. Thanks. I thought about doing orange for Halloween, but I needed to do blue first. I was gonna do blue first, and then I'm gonna do orange for Halloween, I think, and then red for Christmas. I'm probably do red for the rest of the year. Maybe I'll just skip the orange and just do red. Orange would be really cool, though. I don't know. We'll see. Anywho, this man is hawking charms. He's hawking goods. These charms consisted of oblong slips of vellum with Kabbalistic ciphers and diagrams upon them. Carmilla instantly purchased one, and so did I. Interesting that Carmilla would purchase it. It's clearly fake if she is able to. He was looking up, and we were smiling down upon him, amused. At least I can answer for myself. His piercing black eye, as he looked up in our faces, seemed to detect something that fixed for a moment his curiosity. In an instant, he unrolled a leather case full of all manner of odd little steel instruments. "See here, my lady," he said, displaying it, and addressing me. "I profess, among other things less useful, the art of dentistry." "Plague take that dog," because the dog's howling, he interpolated. "Silence, beast, he howls so that your ladyships can scarcely hear a word. Your noble friend, the young lady at your right, has the sharpest tooth. Long, thin, pointed, like an awl. Like a needle, haha. With my sharp and long sight, as I look up, I have seen it distinctly. Now, if it happens to hurt the young lady, and I think it must, am I. Here are my file, and my punch, my nippers. I will make it round and blunt, if her ladyship pleases. No longer the tooth of a fish, but of a beautiful young lady as she is. Hey? Is the young lady displeased? Have I been too bold? Have I offended her?" Young lady, indeed, looked very angry as she drew back from the window. "How dares that mountebank insult us so? Where's your father? I shall demand redress from him. My father would have had the wretch tied up to the pump and flogged with a cart whip and burned to the bones with the cattle brand." She retired. Wow, her dad sounds like he sucks. She retired from the window a step or two and sat down, and had hardly lost sight of the offender when her wrath subsided, and suddenly as it had risen, and she gradually recovered her usual tone, and seemed to forget the little hunchback and his follies. My father was out of spirits that evening. On coming in, he told us that there had been another case very similar to the two fatal ones which had already lately occurred. The sister of a young peasant on his estate, only a mile away, was very ill, had been, as she described it, attacked very nearly in the same way, and was now slowly but steadily sinking. All this, said my father, is strictly referable to natural causes. These poor people infect one another with their superstitions, and so repeat in imagination the images of terror that have infested their neighbors. "But that very circumstance frightens one horribly," said Camilla. "How so?" inquired my father. "I am so afraid of fancying I see such things. I think it would be as bad as reality. We are in God's hands. Nothing can happen without his permission, and all will end well for those who love him. He is our faithful creator. He has made us and will take care of us." "Creator? Nature," said the young lady in answer to my gentle father. "And this disease that invades the country is natural. Nature. All things proceed from nature, don't they? All things in the heaven, in the earth, and under the earth act and live as nature ordains? I think so." "The doctor said he would come here today," said my father, after a silence. "I want to know what he thinks about it, and what he thinks we'd better do." "Doctors never did me any good," said Camilla. "Then you have been ill?" I asked. "More ill than ever you were," she answered. "Long ago?" "Yes, a long time. I suffered from this very illness, but I forget all but my pain and weakness, and they were not so bad as are suffered into other diseases." "You were very young then?" "I dare say. Let us talk no more of it. You would not wound a friend." She looked languidly in my eyes, and passed her arm around my waist lovingly, and led me out of the room. My father was busy over some papers near the window. "Why does your papa like to frighten us?" said the pretty girl, with a sigh and a little shudder. "He doesn't, dear Carmilla. It is the very furthest thing from his mind." "Are you afraid, dearest?" "I should be very much if I fancied there was a real danger from being attacked as these poor people were." "You're afraid to die?" "Yes, everyone is." "But to die as lovers may, to die together, so that they may live together. Girls are caterpillars while they live in the world, to be finally butterflies when the summer comes. And in the meanwhile, There are grubs and larvae. Don't you see? Each with their peculiar propensities, necessities, and structure. So says Monsieur Buffon in his big book in the next room. What the fuck is she talking about? Later in the day, the doctor came and was closeted with Papa for some time. And they're both boys. No, I'm just kidding. He was a skillful man of 60 and upwards. He wore powder and shaved his pale face as smooth as a pumpkin. He and Papa emerged from the room together, and I heard Papa laugh and say as they came out, "Well, I do wonder, at a wise man like you, why do you say to hippogriffs and dragons? What do you say to hippogriffs and dragons?" The doctor was smiling and made answer, shaking his head. "Nevertheless, life and death are mysterious states, and we know little of the resources of either." And so they walked on, and I heard no more. I did not then know what the doctor had been broaching, but I think I guess it now. Huh. Huh. We're on to chapter 5. How many chapters are there, actually? There are 16? There's 16. We could probably get halfway through. If my eyes will take it. My problem is reading the screen. The book is just black letters on white screen. I'm going to take my teeth out for a second, too. But, however... I can't help myself but read it. I kept reading ahead because I don't know. I don't know, y'all. What do you think? Obviously, Carmilla's a vampire. And the Hunchback was like, "You have sharp teeth. I could fix them." This man really showed up with a bunch of taxidermied monstrosities and was like, "Let me fix your teeth." What an interesting fellow. What a fun character to have in a novella like this. To just have him show up and be like, "Here's all my weird things. I can sell you this amulet and also fix your teeth." And she was offended. She was offended. I mean, I'll just keep going for as long as I can take it. I'm gonna be honest. I might have to grab my glasses. I don't know. I have the text enlarged. I don't want you to. I do not want to share my screen because I would be embarrassed at how large this text is. Chapter 5. A Wonderful Likeness. This evening there arrived from Gratz the grave, dark-faced son of the picture cleaner, with a horse and a cart laden with 2 large packing cases, having many pictures in each. It was a journey of 10 leagues, and whenever a messenger arrived at the Schloss from our little capital of Gratz, we used to crowd about him in the hall to hear the news. This arrival created in our scheduled quarters quite a sensation. The cases remained in the hall, and the messenger was taken charge of by the servants till he had eaten his supper. Then, with assistance, and armed with hammer, ripping chisel, and turnscrew, he met us in the hall, where he had assembled to witness the unpacking of the cases. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with... I actually have an eye doctor appointment in a week and a half because my eyes are not getting better. My eyes aren't getting better, that's for sure. No, macular degeneration runs in my family, so I gotta, like, get on that shit before it becomes a problem. I should be fine. I'll be blind by the time I'm 50, but I'll be fine. I know. I actually do. So... I have a pair of reading glasses. They're readers. And I was reading my book, and then I was like, oh yeah, I have those readers somewhere, and I put them on. And they were prescribed to me by an eye doctor, like many, many, many years ago. And I put them on, and I was like, oh my god, this makes the world a difference. And so I started wearing them to read, and then I was reading one night I was reading in bed and I was wearing the readers, and I was like, I'm faking. There's no way that these readers actually make that big of a difference, and I'm just wearing glasses because I want to wear glasses, because I do. I think I look really cute in glasses. I can put a pair on right now. I've got a couple pairs on my desk. I think I look really cute in glasses. I would, like, it's one of those things where, like, I would totally wear glasses if I had to, but I took the readers. These are not the readers, by the way. But I was reading my book. Thank you, Will. I was reading my book, and then I was like, there's no way. And then I went like this. And I was like, oh, yeah. Let me go grab them. I'm going to go grab them. I don't know why we're yapping and not reading. It's yap o'clock. Always. All right, here they are. These are my actual, like, reading glasses. My actual, like, you can tell that there's some magnification there. I was like, what's on my face? It's not. It's on my screen. Okay. But yeah, these are thems. Um, yeah, I can be in the glasses club. Oh, hello. You do look cute in glasses, confirmed. Yes. Yeah. No. These are the actual readers, which, like, honestly, I might just keep on for the reading of this because it really is annoying how much they actually help. And then my best friend of 10 years, I brought these camping with us. My best friend of 10 years, I put them on to read the book, and they look at me and they're like, since when do you wear glasses? And I was like, they're readers. I am over the age of 30 and my eyes decided that they didn't want to work anymore. Sad, sad life. All cuties wear glasses, and everyone who wears glasses is a cutie. How about that? How about that? Okay, so the guy came with the cases. What do we think are in the cases? Do we want to speculate? I love speculating. So yeah, it's they're paintings, because they literally already said that they having many pictures in each of the cases. Carmilla sat looking listlessly on while one after the other, the old pictures, nearly all portraits, which had undergone the process of renovation, were brought to light. My mother was of an old Hungarian family, and most of these pictures, which were about to be restored to their places, had come to us through her. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. No exceptions. My father had a list in his hand from which he read as the artist rummaged out the corresponding numbers. I don't know that the pictures were very good, but they were undoubtedly very old, and some of them very curious also. They had, for the most part, the merit of being now seen by me, I may say, for the first time, for the smoke and dust of time had all but obliterated them. I might not wear these. I might not. Because my screen is too far away from my face is the problem. If I was reading a book and it was here, it would be different. My father had a list in his hand. Okay, smoke and dust had all but obliterated them. Okay. There's a picture that I have not seen yet, said my father. In one corner at the top of it is the name, as well as I could read, Marcia Karnstein, and the date 1698, and I am curious to see how it has turned out. Karnstein is the name of the people who had the town, the decrepit, abandoned one. I remembered it. It was a small picture, about 1.5 feet high, and nearly square, without a frame, but it was so blackened by age that I could not make it out. The artist now produced it with evident pride. It was quite beautiful. It was startling. It seemed to live. It was the effigy of Carmilla. Aiden said, weird fun fact, my left eye has been super weak my whole life. My parents tried countless times to cure it somehow, but failed. When I was about 30, I remembered that as a kid, I used to look into the sun, wondering what's inside. Oh no. Oh no. Yeah, don't look at the sun. Hey, I want to. I want to look at the sun all the time. I think the sun is so fascinating and I would love to look at it. But Man. Man, oh man. Carmilla, dear, here's an absolute miracle. Here you are, living, smiling, ready to speak in this picture. Isn't it beautiful, Papa? And see, even the little mole on her throat. My father laughed and said, certainly it is a wonderful likeness, but he looked away, and to my surprise seemed but little struck by it, and went on talking to the picture cleaner, who was also something of an artist, and discoursed with intelligence about the portraits and other work which his art had just brought into light and color, while I was more and more lost in the wonder, and the more I looked at the picture. Yeah, Gus has really bad eyes, too. And he's also type 1 diabetic. I wonder if there's a correlation there. But his mom has really bad eyes, and she's not diabetic. She got her eyes fixed, though. Will you let me hang this picture in my room, Papa? I asked. I was just saying, Papa. Certainly, dear, said he, smiling. I'm very glad you think it's so like. I'm very glad you think it's so like. It must be prettier even than I thought it if it is. Why he talking like that? The young lady did not acknowledge this pretty speech, did not seem to hear it. She was leaning back in her seat, her fine eyes under their long lashes gazing on me in contemplation, and she smiled in a kind of rapture. And now you can read quite plainly the name that is written in the corner. It is not Marcia. It looks as if it were done in gold. The name is Mercala, Countess Karnstein, and this is a little coronet over and underneath AD, 1698. I am descended from the Karnsteins, that is, Mama was. Diabetes can affect everything if it's not controlled. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Said the lady languidly. So am I think. A very long descendant, very ancient. Are there any Kernsteins living now? None who bear the name, I believe. The family were ruined, I believe, in some civil wars long ago, but the ruins of the castle are only about 3 miles away. How interesting, she said languidly. But see what beautiful moonlight. She glanced through the hall door, which stood a little open. Suppose you take a little ramble around the court and look down the road and river? It is so like the night you came to us, I said. She sighed, smiling. She rose, and each, with her arm about the other's waist, walked out upon the pavement. In silence, slowly we walked down to the drawbridge, where the beautiful landscape opened before us. And so you were thinking of the night I came here, she almost whispered. Are you glad I came? Delighted, dear Carmilla. And you asked for the picture you think like me to hang in your room, she murmured with a sigh, as she drew her arm closer about my waist and let her pretty head sink upon my shoulder. How romantic you are, Carmilla, I said. Whenever you tell me your story, it will be made up chiefly of some one great romance. She kissed me silently. I am sure, Carmilla, you have been in love, that there is at this moment an affair of the heart going on. I have been in love with no one, and never shall, she whispered, unless it should be with you. How beautiful she looked in the moonlight. Shy and strange was the look with which she quickly hid her face in my neck and hair, with tumultuous sighs, that she seemed almost to sob, and pressed in mine a hand that trembled. Her soft cheek was glowing against mine. Darling, darling, she murmured, I live in you, and you would die for me. I love you so. I started from her. She was gazing on me with eyes from which all fire, all meaning had flown, and a face colorless and apathetic. Is there a chill in the air, dear? She said drowsily. I almost shiver. Have I been dreaming? Let us come in. Come in. You look ill, Carmilla, a little faint. You certainly must take some wine, I said. Yes, I will. I'm better now. I shall be quite well in a few minutes. Yes, do give me a little wine, answered Carmilla as we approached the door. Let us look again for a moment. It is the last time, perhaps, I shall see the moonlight with you. How do you feel now, Carmilla? Are you really better? I asked. I was beginning to take alarm, lest she should have been stricken with the strange epidemic that they said had invaded the country about us. Papa would be grieved beyond measure, I added, if he thought you were ever so little ill, without immediately letting us know. We have a very skillful doctor near us, the physician who was with Papa today. I'm sure he is. I know how kind you all are, but, dear child, I'm quite well again. There's nothing ever wrong with me but a little weakness. People say I am languid. I am incapable of exertion. I can scarcely walk as far as a child 3 years old, and every now and then the little strength I have falters, and I become as you have just seen me. But after all, I am very easily set up again. In a moment, I'm perfectly myself. See how I've recovered? She's over here like, no, I'm fine, as she's like melting over the chairs. So indeed she had, and she and I talked a great deal, and very animated she was, and the remainder of that evening passed without any recurrence of what I called her infatuations. I mean her crazy talk and looks, which embarrassed and even frightened me. That's crazy talk. But there occurred that night an event which gave my thoughts quite a new turn and seemed to startle even Carmilla's languid nature into momentary energy. And that brings us to chapter 6, A Very Strange Agony. Who do you think's gonna die first? I don't actually know if anyone dies, but like, if we had to place bets. Because obviously the person writing this is still alive. Me. Because the little girl that they were singing to... Oh, well, you're so right. She absolutely did, because she's already dead. I was more talking like the two governesses, the dad, the main character, and Carmilla. The girl already in the coffin, you were so right. You were so right. The girl that they got the letter in the first chapter, was it the first or second chapter? The dad got the letter from the capsule, from the castle, and was basically just like, oh yeah, that little friend that you were supposed to meet and have, she died. Forgot to tell you, my bad. Alright, chapter 6, A Very Strange Agony. When we got into the drawing room and had sat down When we had got into the drawing room and had sat down to our coffee and chocolate, although Carmilla did not take any, she seemed quite herself again, and Madame and Mademoiselle de la Fontaine joined us, and made a little card party, in the course of which Papa came in for what he called his dish of tea. When the game was over, he sat down beside Carmilla on the sofa and asked her, a little anxiously, whether she had heard from her mother since her arrival. She answered no. He then asked whether she knew where a letter would reach her at present. I cannot tell, she answered ambiguously, but I have been thinking of leaving you. You have been already too hospitable and too kind to me. I have given you an infinity of trouble, and I should wish to take a carriage tomorrow and post in pursuit of her. I know where I shall ultimately find her, although I dare not tell you. What do you mean? What do you mean? But you must not dream of any such thing, exclaimed my father, to my great relief. We can't afford to lose you so, and I won't consent to your leaving us, except under the care of your mother, who was so good as to consent to your remaining with us till she should herself return. I should be quite happy if I knew that you heard from her, but this evening the accounts of the progress of the mysterious disease that has invaded our neighborhood grow even more alarming, and my beautiful guest, I do feel responsibility, unaided by advice from your mother, very much. But I shall do my best, and one thing is certain, that you must not think of leaving us without her distinct direction to that effect. We should suffer too much in parting from you to consent to it easily. Thank you, sir, 1,000 times for your hospitality. She answered, smiling bashfully. I'm sorry, this is making me think of something. And we're going to yap about it in a second. Thank you, sir, 1,000 times for your hospitality, she answered, smiling bashfully. You have all been too kind to me. I have seldom been so happy in all my life before as in your beautiful chateau, under your care, in the society of your dear daughter. So he gallantly, in his old-fashioned way, kissed her hand, smiling and pleased at her little speech. I accompanied Carmilla, as usual, to her room, and sat and chatted with her while she was prepared for bed. Do you think, I said at length, that you will ever confide fully in me? She turned around, smiling, but made no answer, only continued to smile on me. You won't answer that? I said. You can't answer pleasantly. I ought not to have asked you. You were quite right to ask me that, or anything. You do not know how dear you are to me, or you could not think any confidence too great to look for. But I am under vows, no none half so awfully, and none, N-U-N, and I dare not tell my story yet, even to you. The time is very near when you shall know everything. You will think me cruel, very selfish, but love is always selfish. The more ardent and the more selfish. The more ardent, the more selfish. How jealous I am, you cannot know. You must come with me, loving me to death, or else hate me and still come with me, and hating me through death and after. There is no such word as indifference in my apathetic nature. Now, Camilla, you're going to talk your wild nonsense again, I said hastily. Not I, silly little fool as I am, and full of whims and fancies. For your sake, I'll talk like a sage. Were you ever at a ball? No. How do you run on? What is it like? How charming it must be. I almost forget. It was years ago, I laughed. You are not so old. Your first ball can hardly be forgotten yet. Hi, Iron. Looking fire as always. It has been a long time. How are you? Thank you so much for popping in. I appreciate it. I remember everything about it with an effort. I see it all. As divers see what is going on above them through a medium, dense, rippling, but transparent. There occurred that night what has confused the picture and made its colors faint. I was all but assassinated in my bed, wounded here. She touches her breast, and never was the same since. Were you near dying? Yes, very. A cruel love, strange love that would have taken my life. Love will have its sacrifices. No sacrifice without blood. Let us go to sleep now. I feel so lazy. How can I get up just now and lock my door? She was lying with her tiny hands buried in her rich wavy hair under her cheek, her little head upon the pillow, and her glittering eyes followed me wherever I moved, with a kind of shy smile that I could not decipher. I bid her good night, and crept from the room with an uncomfortable sensation. I often wondered whether our pretty guest ever said her prayers. I certainly had never seen her upon her knees. In the morning she never came down until long after our family prayers were over, and at night she never left the drawing room to attend our brief evening prayers in the hall. If it had not been that it had casually come out in one of our careless talks that she had been baptized, I would have doubted her being a Christian. Religion was a subject on which I had never heard her speak of a word. If I had known the world better, this particular neglect or antipathy would not have so much surprised me. The precautions of nervous people are infectious, and persons of a like temperament are pretty sure, after a time, to imitate them. I had adopted Carmilla's habit of locking her bedroom door, having taken into my head all of her whimsical alarms about midnight invaders and prowling assassins. I had also adopted her precaution of making a brief search through her room to satisfy herself that no lurking assassin or robber was ensconced. These wise measures taken, I got into my bed and fell asleep. A light was burning in my room. This was an old habit, of very early date, in which nothing could have tempted me to dispense with. Thus fortified, I might take my rest in peace, but dreams come through stone walls, light up dark rooms, or darken light ones, and their persons make their exits and their entrances as they please, and laughs at locksmiths. Dreams do laugh at locksmiths. I had a dream that night that was the beginning of a very strange agony. I cannot call it a nightmare, for I was quite conscious of being asleep. But I was equally conscious of being in my room and laying in my bed, precisely as I actually was. I saw, or fancied I saw, the room and its furniture just as I had seen it last, except that it was very dark, and I saw something moving around the foot of the bed, which at first I could not accurately distinguish, but I soon saw that it was a sooty black animal that resembled a monstrous cat. Bonnie? It appeared to me about 4 or 5 feet long, for it measured fully the length of the hearthrug as it passed over it, and it continued toing and froing with the lithe, sinister restlessness of a beast in a cage. Psychosis. I could not cry out, although, as you may suppose, I was terrified. Its pace was growing faster, and the room rapidly darker and darker, and at length so dark that I could no longer see anything of it but its eyes. I felt it spring lightly on the bed. The 2 broad eyes approached my face, and suddenly I felt a sting of pain as if 2 large needles darted an inch or 2 apart deep into my breast. I waked with a scream. The room was lighted by the candle that burnt there all through the night, and I saw a female figure standing at the foot of the bed, a little to the at the right side. It was in a dark loose dress, and its hair was down and covered its shoulders. A block of stone could not have been more still. There was not the slightest stir of respiration. As I stared at it, the figure appeared to have changed its place and was now nearer to the door than close to it. The door opened, and it passed out. I was now relieved and able to breathe and move. My first thought was that it was Carmilla had been playing me a trick. My first thought was that Carmilla had been playing me a trick and that I had forgotten to secure my door. I hastened to it and found it locked as usual on the inside. I was afraid to open it. I was horrified. I sprang into my bed and covered my head up in the bedclothes and lay there more dead than alive till morning. Ba-ba-bam. And that is chapter 6. And the thing that reminded me of basically Carmilla coming into this house and then them not letting her leave. There was a story, and I can't remember what documentary it was that I watched. But basically, a family had lost a child, kidnapped, missing. A family had a child go missing. And they got a letter or some sort of correspondence that their missing child was in Spain and they had to come pick him up. And he was like 12, 13, 14 or whatever. And so it was actually the guy impersonating a child had infiltrated an orphanage in Spain, basically. This man was like 23, 24, I think. But he was pretending to be a teenager. And he had made the call to them saying that we have your child as ransom, blah, 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 whatever. Pay the money and come get your kid. Thinking that they would pay the money and never come to Spain to get the child. And so the family goes to Spain and picks him up. And are like, oh my God, we are so happy you're home. This is so great. I'm so glad we're together. Our child is found. And it's not. It's this man. And I think there was a lot of time between when the original kid went missing and when this guy showed up. So, it was all like, oh, you look so different because you went through puberty, or like, you know, they were like making excuses out of it. And so they bring this guy home to Texas with them. And, it might be, this is literally like, yeah, let's see. The Imposter. Is that a movie or a documentary? Yeah, it's called The Imposter. Yeah. Yeah. A documentary centered around a young man in Spain who claims to a grieving Texas family that he is their 16-year-old son who has been missing for 3 years. A documentary centered on a young man in Spain who claims to a grieving... Oh, wait. It just says it again. Frederick Borden, whatever. He claims to have assumed at least 500 false identities, 3 being missing teenage people, for money. He would collect the, like, ransom. Yeah. So, the kid went missing in 1994. He never made it home, not been seen or heard from since. In 1997, Bourdon took Barclay's identity and was flown to the United States. Although Bourdon had brown eyes and a French accent, he convinced the family it was their blue-eyed son, saying he'd escaped from a child prostitution ring, and the ring had altered his eye color. Bourdon lived with the family for almost 5 months until March 6, 1998. In 1997, a local private investigator grew suspicious while he was working with a TV crew that had been filming the family. The investigator compared a photo of Bourdon's ears to Nicholas's ears and discovered that they did not match. Why is my brother calling me? Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so this is a real thing that happened. But the family was like, no, it's him. It's fine. Stop looking into it. The family did not want this private investigator to meet with him and was coaching, the family was coaching the now son, like so this is what Carmilla, like, why Carmilla made me think of this. Oh, there's an ad in 10 seconds. Basically, Carmilla is now stuck in their house. They won't let her leave. And it's like, well, Carmilla was the vampire, the bad one. And he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. Yeah, no, Carmilla is stuck in the house. I was like, what's that sound? What's that sound? It's the spooky ambiance, haunted house, rainy Halloween village, which it's almost over, by the way, so I'm going to start it over. It was like a 3-hour video. Actually, I'll take a BRB because I got to go to the bathroom and respond to these text messages and maybe call my brother back. BRB. Supposedly the ad break is over. And apparently my mom's sick, but I saw her yesterday. So I don't know. We'll see. Oh boy. So, chapter 6. Yeah, I saw my mom yesterday. And my brother texted me and was like, "Can I borrow your car this weekend?" Uh, let's see. Okay. Yeah, I saw my mom. She came over here to pick up my brother. My brother borrowed my car, was dropping it off here, and then my mom offered to drive him back to the city. So she picked him up here. So I saw her for a second. But then my brother just texted me and was like, he was calling me. He said, "Mom sounds super sick. What time are you leaving from Milwaukee? Because I'm going to Milwaukee this weekend." I was going to ask if I could borrow the Civic to go walk a crazy dog. I should probably call him back. I'm going to be ending stream in about an hour. We're going to stream for about another... I'm going to read for about another hour. We're on chapter 7. We're almost about halfway through. There's, what did I say, 16 chapters? Yeah, we're close to halfway. Hi, Bondi. Okay. Chapter 7 is called Descending. It would be vain my attempting to tell you the horror with which, even now, I recall the occurrence of that night. It was no such transitory terror as a dream leaves behind it. It seemed to deepen by time, and communicated itself to the room and the very furniture that had encompassed the apparition. I could not bear next day to be alone for a moment. I should have told Papa, but for two opposite reasons. At one time, I thought he would laugh at my story, and I could not bear it being treated as a jest. And at another, I thought he might fancy that I had been attacked by the mysterious complaint which had invaded our neighborhood. I had myself no misgiving of the kind, and as he had been rather an invalid for some time, I was afraid of alarming him. I was comfortable enough with my good-natured companions, Madame Perrodon and the vivacious Mademoiselle Lafontaine. They both perceived that I was out of spirits and nervous, and at length I told them what lay so heavy on my heart. Mademoiselle laughed, but I fancied that Madame Perrodon looked anxious. "By the by," said Mademoiselle, laughing, "the long lime tree walk behind Carmilla's bedroom window is haunted." "Nonsense," exclaimed Madame, who probably thought the theme rather inopportune. "And who tells that story, my dear?" "Martin says that he came up twice when the old yard gate was being repaired before sunrise and saw the same female figure walking down the lime tree avenue. So he well might, as long... Did I... Okay, sorry. So he well might. I lost it because I scrolled. So he well might, as long as there are cows to milk in the river fields, said Madame. I dare say, but Martin chooses to be frightened, and never did I see a fool more frightened. You must not say a word about it to Carmilla, because she can see down that walk from her window, I interposed, and she is, if possible, a greater coward than I am. Carmilla came down rather later than usual that day. I was so frightened last night, she said, so soon as we were together. I am sure I should have seen something dreadful if it had not been for that charm I bought from the poor little hunchback whom I called such hard names. I had a dream of something black coming around my bed, and I awoke in a perfect horror, and I really thought for some seconds I saw a dark figure near the chimney-piece, and I felt under my pillow for my charm, and the moment my fingers touched it, the figure disappeared, and I felt quite certain, only that I had it by me, that something frightful would have made its appearance and perhaps throttled me as it did those poor people we heard of. Well, listen to me, I began, and recounted my adventure, at the recital of which she appeared horrified. And you had the charm near you? She asked, earnestly. No, I had dropped it into a china vase in the drawing-room, but I shall certainly take it with me tonight, as you have so much faith in it. At this distance of time, I cannot tell you, or even understand how I overcame my horror so effectually as to lie alone in my room that night. I remember distinctly that I pinned the charm to my pillow. I fell asleep almost immediately and slept even more soundly than usual all night. Next night passed as well. My sleep was delightfully deep and dreamless. But I wakened with a sense of lassitude and melancholy, which, however, did not exceed a degree that was almost luxurious. Well, I told you so, said Carmilla, when I described my quiet sleep. I had such delightful sleep myself last night. I pinned the charm to the breast of my nightdress. It was too far away the night before. I am quite sure it was all fancy except the dreams. I used to think that evil spirits made dreams, but our doctor told me it is no such thing. Only a fever passing by or some other malady, as they often do, he said, knocks at the door, and not being able to get in, passes on with that alarm. And what do you think the charm is? Said I. It has been fumigated or immersed in some drug and is an antidote against the malaria, she answered. Then it acts only on the body? Certainly. You don't suppose that evil spirits are frightened by bits of ribbon or the perfumes of a druggist's shop. No, these complaints wandering in the air begin by trying the nerves and so infect the brain. But before they can seize upon you, the antidote repels them. That, I am sure, is what the charm has done for us. It is nothing magical. It is simply natural. I should have been happier if I could have quite agreed with Carmilla, but I did my best, and the impression was a little losing its force. Yes, this is a NYX liquid suede. I can show it to you. Hold on. We got it. It's right here. It's called NYX Lingerie. It's NYX Lingerie XXL. It's I guess it's not the liquid suede. It's yeah, it's called NYX Lingerie matte liquid lipstick. The color is Straps Off. Straps Off is the name of the color. Yeah, it's NYX. They're like $8 at Walgreens, Target, whatever. It's drugstore. Drugstore lipstick. Yeah, except for my eyeshadow and my eyebrows, everything else I have is drugstore. Or like Sephora brand. Like my face powder and my concealer is Sephora brand, which the Sephora brand is actually great and it's pretty cheap for what it is, and it I think Sephora basically made dupes of all of the good. They took the formulas from the good companies and are selling them for cheaper so that they can sell it for cheaper and make more money because more people are buying the cheaper ones. I don't know. The theory. Capitalism. Just, money. I don't know. I'm probably going to end stream early today because I don't know if it's the reading. It's low-key illegal that you're so hot. Hi, Ohana. Thank you. I love you. We were just talking about my lipstick. It's cheap NYX that you can get at Target. I think I got mine from Target. Got it from Target. It's real nice. Also, I did my eyebrows differently. I just did my eyebrows like straight up. And it really like changes the face. It's really nice. I have people ask me about my eyebrows all the time, and I'm like, well, I shave them to like here. You can see where they end, and then the rest is just fake, drawn on. Have you seen the Instagram reel of that one girl who was like, I got stopped by a man, and he was like, I must say, you are just such a natural beauty. They don't make them like they used to. And she's like, yes, I do. This jawline was $10,000. She's like, I Botox. True, commit crimes. Hi, Trevor. Yeah, no, she's talking about how like her entire face is fake and cost over $20,000, and men do not know the difference. Men are just like, oh, you're such a natural beauty, and it's like, no, I'm not. I paid to look this way, and I wish you would acknowledge that. I put a lot of time, effort, and money into how I look. I didn't. My face actually is just this way. My aunt almost talked me into preventative Botox, but something about needles in my face. I don't like it. Gross. Who goes on Instagram? Me constantly. You literally. Never mind. Never mind. Oh gosh. Okay. So she said the charm is natural. For some nights I slept profoundly, and still every morning I felt the same lassitude and languor wait upon me all day. I felt myself a changed girl. A strange melancholy was stealing over me, a melancholy that I would not have interrupted. Dim thoughts of death began to open, and an idea that I was slowly sinking took gentle and somehow not unwelcome possession of me. If it was sad, the tone of mind which this induced was also sweet. Whatever it might be, my soul acquiesced it. I would not admit that I was ill. I would not consent to tell my papa or to have the doctor sent for. Carmilla became more devoted to me than ever, and her strange paroxysms of languid adoration more frequent. She used to gloat on me with increasing ardor, and the more my strength and spirits waned. I can totally read. I'm so good at reading. This always shocked me, like a momentary glare of insanity. Without knowing it, I was now in a pretty advanced stage of the strangest illness under which mortal ever suffered. That was a joke. The only reason I know you were on Instagram is because you made a comment about how soft my dress looks. And it is. It's so funny because we're just talking about like stamped velvet, but I don't know what this is technically. It's got cat hair all over it though. She's sick. Where are we? Okay. Yes. Advanced stage of the strangest illness under which mortal ever suffered. There was an unaccountable fascination in its earlier symptoms that more than reconciled me to the incapacitating effect of that stage of the malady. This fascination increased for a time until it reached a certain point when gradually a sense of the horrible mingled itself with it, deepening, as you shall hear, until it discolored and perverted my whole state of my life. The first change I experienced was rather agreeable. It was very near the turning point from which began the descent of avarice. Certain vague and strange sensations visited me in my sleep. The prevailing one was of that pleasant, peculiar cold thrill which we feel in bathing when we move against the current of a river. This was soon accompanied by dreams that seemed interminable and were so vague that I could never recollect their scenery and persons, or any one connected portion of their action. Hi, Chess. What's up? Good to see you again. I'm reading Carmilla right now. We're kind of in the middle of it. It's kind of wacky. Let's see. It left an awful impression and a sense of exhaustion, as if I had passed through a long period of great mental exertion and danger. That's how I feel when I wake up, though, for real. When I dream vividly at night, I wake up and I'm like, I've been running around all night. I'm exhausted. After all these dreams, there remained on waking a remembrance of having been in a place very nearly dark, and of having spoken to people whom I could not see, and especially of one clear voice, of a female's, very deep, that spoke as if at a distance, slowly, and producing always the same sensation of indescribable solemnity and fear. Sometimes there came a sensation as if a hand was drawn softly along my cheek and neck. Sometimes it was a bit. She just like me for real. I'm so glad. Vibin'. Sometimes it was as if warm lips kissed me, and longer and more lovingly as they reached my throat. But there the caress fixed itself. Stay out of my dreams. Well, I love when people have dreams about me. If you have a dream about me, you have to tell me. I also tell people when I have dreams about them. Like, typically immediately I'll wake up and be like, I had a dream about you last night. I did that to a friend recently, though, where I was like, I had a dream about you last night. And he was like, well, were we building a go-kart in my living room? And I was like, yeah, something like that. Anywho. Yes. As they reached my throat, but there the caress fixed itself. My heart beat faster, my breathing rose and fell rapidly and full drawn, a sobbing that rose into a sense of strangulation, supervened and turned into a dreadful convulsion in which my senses left me and I became unconscious. God. Wait, never mind. Sorry. It was now 3 weeks since the commencement of this unaccountable state. My sufferings had, during the last week, told upon my appearance. I had grown pale, my eyes were dilated and darkened underneath, and the languor which I had long felt began to display itself in my countenance. My father asked me often whether I was ill, but with an obstinacy which now seems to me unaccountable, I persisted in assuring him that I was quite well. In a sense, this was true. I had no pain. I could complain of no bodily derangement. My complaint seemed to be one of the imagination or the nerves, and horrible as my sufferings were, I kept them, with morbid reserve, nearly to myself. I could not be that terrible complaint which the peasants called the Alpire, it could not be, for I had now been suffering for 3 weeks, and they were seldom ill for much more than 3 days, when death put an end to their miseries. Carmilla complained of dreams and feverish sensations, but by no means of so alarming a kind as mine. I say that mine were extremely alarming. Had I been capable of comprehending my condition, I would have invoked aid and advice on my knees. The narcotic of an unsuspected influence was acting upon me, and my perceptions were benumbed. I am going to tell you now of a dream that led immediately to an odd discovery. One night, I love how she just like, sit down, I'm gonna tell you something. This is, again, the 3rd or 4th time she's like, I'm about to tell you some shit, buckle up. One night, instead of the voice I was accustomed to hear in the dark, I heard one sweet and tender, and at the same time terrible, which said, "Your mother warns you to beware of the assassin." At the same time, a light unexpectedly sprang up, and I saw Carmilla standing near the foot of my bed, in her white nightdress, bathed from her chin to her feet, in one great stain of blood.
What are you doing in my swamp?
Steve! It's so good to see you. How was your stream? Hi, Bard. What are you doing in my swamp? What were you up to? Tell me everything. Hello, my chat on web won't work, so app chat it is. And app chat sucks too. But hello, welcome in. Thanks for the raid. What were you playing? What were you doing? We're currently reading Carmilla, which is a novella, vampire novella. I saw Zawara get smacked yesterday. I got a message from Zawara that just said she's driving me crazy. So whatever's going on over there, that's your business. That's your business. Oh, so fun. But Steve, thank you so much for the raid. If you're coming in with the Steve raid and you don't know me, my name is Lynn. Steve and I bonded over feet. Did some ranked Rocket League. First time doing ranked, and I lost maybe 1 game. Let's go. I've been doing ranked Fortnite, and I've been really enjoying it. I'm Cozy Chaotic. We're being real cozy today. We're reading a book, and shit's going on. I'm a variety streamer. I stream whatever. Today, I just decided I wanted to read, because I wanted to read this anyway. So we're kind of reading the first half, and then I think I'm going to try to finish it next week. But yes, this is all about me. And we are like right at the end of chapter 7 of Carmilla out of 16 chapters. So I think I can get pretty well to the halfway point. And I wish I could finish it tomorrow, but I can't. I'm not streaming tomorrow, which is so sad. But Monday. I'll be back Monday. But, Steve, I know it's late for you, so if you need to go get some after-stream self-care, go take care of yourself, go get some rest. I know you're up late, too, so it's whatever. Do whatever you want, as long as you're taking care of yourself. And that goes for everyone. Do whatever you want. As long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting other people, do whatever you want. Okay. So, she literally just said, I'm going to tell you now of a dream that led immediately to an odd discovery. So she was talking about, your mother warns you to beware of the assassin. At the time, a light unexpectedly sprang up, and I saw Carmilla standing near the foot of my bed in her white nightdress, bathed from her chin to her feet in one giant stain of blood. I awakened with a shriek, possessed with the one idea that Carmilla was being murdered. I remembered springing from my bed, and my next recollection is that of standing in the lobby crying for help. Madame and Mademoiselle came scurrying out of their rooms in alarm. A lamp burned always in the lobby, and seeing me, they soon learned the cause of my terror. I insisted on our knocking on Carmilla's door. Our knocking was unanswered. It soon became a pounding and uproar. We shrieked her name, but all was in vain. We all grew frightened, for the door was locked. We hurried back in panic to my room. There we rang the bell long and furiously. If my father's room had been at that side of the house, we would have called him up at once to our aid. But alas, he was quite out of hearing, and to reach him involved an excursion for which none of us had courage. Servants, however, soon came running up the stairs. I had got on my dressing gown and slippers meanwhile, and my companions were already similarly furnished. Recognizing the voices of the servants on the lobby, we sallied out together, and having renewed as fruitlessly our summons at Carmilla's door, I ordered the men to force the lock. They did so, and we stood, holding our lights aloft in the doorway, and so stared into the room. We called her by her name, but there was still no reply. We looked around the room. Everything was undisturbed. It was exactly in the state in which I had left it, bidding her good night, but Carmilla was gone. She's gone. Where'd she go? Who's to say? Chapter 8's called Search, so maybe we'll find out. Okay. At sight of the room perfectly undisturbed, except for our violent entrance, we began to cool a little, and soon recovered our senses sufficiently to dismiss the men. It had struck Mademoiselle that possibly Carmilla had been wakened by the uproar at her door, and in her first panic had jumped from her bed and hid herself in a press or behind a curtain, from which she could not, of course, emerge until the major domo of his myrmidons had withdrawn. We now recommenced our search and began to call her name again. Talking about her going, I need to check my kitty, turn my PC off. Yes. Go get that after stream self-care. Do what you need to do. Go take care of yourself. Go take care of your kitty. And I'll be here. I'll be here for another like half hour probably. Maybe a little longer. I think I'm gonna stream until 6 o'clock my time. Reading makes me sleepy, but I'm really enjoying it. It's such, especially now that the sun's going down, it's such a good vibe in here. I'm really enjoying it. Okay. They're searching. It was all to no purpose. Our perplexity and agitation increased. We examined the windows, but they were secured. I implored of Carmilla, if she had concealed herself, to play this cruel trick no longer, to come out and to end our anxieties. It was all useless. I was by this time convinced that she was not in the room, nor in the dressing room, the door of which was still locked on this side. She could not have passed it. I was utterly puzzled. Had Carmilla discovered one of those secret passages which the old housekeeper said were known to exist in the Schloss? I'm lost in the Schloss. Although the tradition of their exact situation had been lost. A little time would no doubt explain all, utterly perplexed as for the present we were. Hello. Utterly perplexed as for the present we were. It was past 4 o'clock, and I preferred passing the remaining hours of darkness in Madame's room. Daylight brought no solution of the difficulty. The whole household, with my father at its head, was in a state of agitation the next morning. Every part of the chateau was searched, the grounds were explored, no trace of the missing lady could be discovered. The stream was about to be dragged, my father was in distraction. What a tale to have to tell the poor girl's mother on her return. I too was almost beside myself, though my grief was quite a different kind. The morning was passed in alarm and excitement. It was now 1 o'clock and still no tidings. I ran up to Carmilla's room and found her standing at her dressing table. I was astounded. I could not believe my eyes. She beckoned me to her with her pretty finger in silence. Her face expressed extreme fear. I ran to her in an ecstasy of joy. I kissed and embraced her again and again. I ran to the bell and rang it vehemently, to bring others to the spot who might once relieve my father's anxiety. Dear Carmilla, what has become of you all this time? We have been in agonies of anxiety about you, I explained. Where have you been? How did you come back? Last night has been a night of wonders, she said. For mercy's sake, explain all you can. It was past 2 last night, she said, when I went to sleep as usual in my bed, with my doors locked, that of the dressing room and that opening upon the gallery. My sleep was uninterrupted and, so far as I know, dreamless. But I woke just now on the sofa in the dressing room there, and I found the door between the rooms open and the other door forced. How could all this have happened without my being awakened? It must have been accompanied with a great deal of noise, and I am particularly easily wakened. And how could I have been carried out of my bed without my sleep having been interrupted? I, whom the slightest stir startles. By this time, Madame, Mademoiselle, my father, and a number of the servants were in the room. Carmilla was, of course, overwhelmed with inquiries, congratulations, and welcomes. She had but one story to tell, and seemed the least able of all the party to suggest any way of accounting for what had happened. My father took a turn up and down the room, thinking. I saw Carmilla's eyes follow him for a moment with a sly, dark glance. Sly, dark glance. When my father had sent the servants away, Mademoiselle, having gone in search of a little bottle of valerian and sal volatile. Interesting. So volatile. And there being no one now in the room with Carmilla except my father, Madame, and myself, he came to her thoughtfully, took her hand very kindly, led her to the sofa, and sat down beside her. So volatile is smelling salts, by the way. Sal, volatile. Makes sense. Dad sat down next to her on the sofa. Will you forgive me, my dear, if I risk a conjecture and ask a question? Who can have a better right, she said. Ask what you please, and I will tell you everything, but my story is simply one of bewilderment and darkness. I know absolutely nothing. Put any question you please, but you know, of course, the limitations Mamma has placed me under. Perfectly, my dear child. I need not approach the topics on which she desires our silence. Now, the marvel of last night consists in your having been removed from your bed and your room without being wakened, and, bookworm, hello. And this removal having occurred apparently while the windows were still secured and the two doors locked upon the inside. I will tell you my theory and ask you a question. Carmilla was leaning on her hand dejectedly. Madame and I were listening breathlessly. Now my question is, have you ever been suspected of walking in your sleep? Never, since I was very young indeed. But you did walk in your sleep when you were young? Yes, I know I did. I have been told so often by my nurse. My father smiled and nodded. Well, what has happened is this. You got up in your sleep, unlocked the door, not leaving the key as usual in the lock, but taking it out and locking it on the other side. You again took the key out and carried it away with you to some one of the 25 rooms on this floor, or perhaps upstairs or downstairs. There are so many rooms and closets and so much heavy furniture and such accumulations of lumber that it would require a week to search this old house thoroughly. Do you see now what I mean? I do, but not all, she answered. And how, Papa, do you account for her finding herself on the sofa in the dressing room, which we had searched so carefully? She came there after you had searched it, still in her sleep, and at last awoke spontaneously, and was much surprised to find herself where she was as anyone else. I wish all mysteries were as easily and innocently explained as yours, Carmilla, he said, laughing. And so we may congratulate ourselves on the certainty that the most natural explanation of the occurrence is one that involves no drugging, no tampering with locks, no burglars, no poisoners or witches, nothing that need alarm Carmilla or anyone else for our safety. Carmilla was looking charmingly. Nothing could be more beautiful than her tints. Her beauty was, I think, enhanced by that graceful... Oh, I'm losing it. Her beauty was, I think, enhanced by that graceful languor that was peculiar to her. I think my father was silently contrasting her looks with mine, for he said, I wish my poor Laura was looking more like herself, and he sighed. So our alarms were happily ended, and Carmilla restored to her friends. Is that the first time we hear that her name is Laura? I've been kind of trying to figure it out, but now we know. But for some reason, Laura feels familiar. I feel like it had been said. Actually, I can search Laura. I want to see the first time the word Laura is mentioned. Where am I? No, that's it. That is the first time they say Laura, and it is only said 5 times in the entire body of work. I wish my poor Laura was looking more like herself, and he sighed. So our alarms were happily ended, and Carmilla restored to her friends. So, you were sleepwalking. I know what it was, Carmilla. You were sleepwalking. Laura had a dream that night that Carmilla was standing at the foot of her bed, covered from neck to foot in a puddle of blood, and Carmilla was sleepwalking. So simple, so easy. And that was chapter 8, so we're exactly at the halfway point of this. So, I don't know. I feel like it would be a good place to, like, it's kind of a good place to stop. How long is the next chapter? It's not very long. I'm trying to, I'm reading ahead a little bit. I'm trying to see if anything, like, of importance, of like real importance happens in the next chapter. And it looks like not really. There's a lot of dialogue. I don't want to read the next chapter yet. There's a lot of dialogue. That's the one thing that I dislike reading when I read out loud is conversations between people. Because I don't really like doing voices. In the beginning, I was trying to do better about, especially the father. But also, in reading out loud, without having pre-read this. Like, I've never read this before, so I don't know what I read the words as soon as you hear them. We are both experiencing this for the first time. However, when people read aloud for recording audiobooks, typically you pre-read whatever you're about to read and then read it. That way, when the quotes start, you know, because when the quotes start, you don't know who's saying it until the end. It's like, blah, 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 said Laura. You know what I mean? So I had to do a lot of guessing based on context, who is talking. And since Carmilla and Laura are like the same person, basically, who's to say? Who is to say, really? But okay, I'm ending stream early. I'm doing it right now. I am very tired, and I think it's from reading. I love reading. And again, we're at like the perfect halfway point. So, ending here is a good idea. We're going to find somebody to raid out to. And it's really funny because Zenny is doing a partner push raid-a-thon. And I love Zenny. I got to meet her at TwitchCon, and we spotted each other across the room. Oh, let me mute her. So. Oh, excellent. Yeah, it looks like actually she also just got raided by Nerdy Northerner, which is amazing. I could also go for a nap. Scola said I do voices for the Spawn. Had been reading him one for several months before realizing that I had been saying a name entirely wrong the whole time. Honestly, though, that's a lot of words that I say that I then later learn that it is not the correct way. So, Nerdy Northerner. Oh my god, just that's not right. Holy shit. Oh my god. I need to go. This has been proof. This has been proof that I need to go. We're gonna raid Zenny. I am in full support of this partner push for her. I do think she absolutely deserves it, and she is so kind, so sweet, deserves the world, and I really do. I hope this works. I don't know. I've heard mixed things about a partner push. I've heard very mixed things about a partner push. So, we're gonna head over there, and yeah, I got nothing else. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for the subs today. Thank you for everyone who was lurking. I know this was a little different of a stream. Love you, bye. I mean, raids count now, so that's fun. Yeah. Because they used to not. So this is great. Yeah, we're gonna go over there for Zenny. I'm, of course, not bringing nearly as many people over as Nerdy Northerner did, but like, I'm nosy. I'm nosy. I want to see. Oh, I can't scroll up that far. Yeah. No, her viewer count went from like 25 to 200, so it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good time. I seriously do. I love Zenny, and I really hope that this works. So I will see you guys on Monday. I've got nothing planned for the rest of the week. I'll be out of town this weekend, so if anyone wants to game, tonight's the night. If anyone wants to do anything, it's tonight or never, and I'll see you Monday. So I will talk to you guys later. Oh, I think it went. Bye. I think it went. Did it go?